Welcome to a special election edition of Michigan Spark. We are with John James Jr., Michigan Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. Mr. James is the first African-American Republican to run for a statewide election in Michigan in 4 decades. Today, we will get a chance to hear and understand Mr. James' view and his inspiration to run for office. Today, I have a very special guest as my co-host. She's Grace Lee, a well-respected community leader and the chair of AIPAC. Grace, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, John. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We have collected some questions from our community. First, can you please take a few minutes to introduce yourself, since some of our audience are not familiar with your background?
Sure. My name is John James. I am a resident and born and raised in the state of Michigan, and I had the opportunity to leave home, go to West Point, graduate in 2004, become a Ranger qualified Apache pilot, and fly 750 hours combat in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I came back home to serve in my community, much for the same reason that I went to go serve my country, because I believe that those of us who are blessed have an obligation, not an option, to continue our service. My family raised me to believe in faith and family, God and country, and service before self. I was taught the importance of education, work ethic, and strong family ties. And I'm running because I want to bring my passion for service and my proven leadership experience from the battlefield to the boardroom to Washington. When I came back home, I joined the family business, which is a Tier 1 automotive supplier, and we export all over the world. One of our best trading partners is actually 3 plants in China. And so being able to bring business experience to the floor of the U.S. Senate is something we don't currently have. Also being able to bring military experience to the floor of the U.S. Senate is also something we don't have. I'm looking forward to bringing my business and my military experience to make Michigan a better place.
What made you decide to run for the U.S. Senate?
One of the biggest things was when I was in Iraq. After getting back from a particular combat mission, I was looking on Armed Forces Network when I was deployed in the dining facility, and I saw areas of Michigan that were very, very hard hit. Areas of home, Flint, Detroit, Pontiac, Saginaw, Benton Harbor, all over the state that looked worse in some cases than the combat zone I was flying in. And that really hurt. That really told me that it felt like we were over fighting for Iraqi freedom, but I didn't feel like there were enough people back here fighting for Michiganders, fighting for economic opportunity, fighting for new options for Michigan. And so I came back to join the family business, and I was able to help grow the family business from $35 million to $137 million and add over 100 jobs in a little bit less than 5 years. I think that's the experience, growing business, growing opportunities for families that we need helping lead us in the U.S. Senate.
China is Michigan's 3rd largest export market. Under the current trade dispute between U.S. and China, what would you do to protect and strengthen the market for Michigan companies and farmers?
Well, part of my job is I'm an export consolidator. We bring production parts to our plant and we export them to 19 different countries, 23 different plants. And again, we have affiliate partners in China that we do very, very close business with. I believe having somebody with the experience, understanding how to make sure that we maintain very strong trade and business relationships with China are very important to have in Washington. China is a very good trading partner, but we need to make sure that we have free but fair trade deals, reciprocal trade deals that everyone can benefit from, and so there are no abuses on any side. I believe that the free market and trade benefits everyone, and I'm looking forward to bringing my experience as a businessman to Washington, because you have so many people in Washington, like my opponent, who have no business experience. You have people like my opponent who are regulating and legislating industries, and they've never run a business before. We need to have somebody in Washington representing Michigan who understands how to have a good outcome for Michigan businesses, Michigan farmers, Michigan factory workers, and Michigan families.
There have been many debates to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. So what is your position on it if you are elected to be the Senate?
I think that both parties have failed. Both parties have failed the American people, particularly as it comes to health care. One party, the Democrat Party, said if you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep them. And they even said if we have to pass it to see what's in it. And then from 2014 to 2017, our health care premiums increased 90% across the country. But then you have the Republican Party that said repeal and replace, and they didn't have a plan. Both parties have failed. I believe that we need to work together to get a plan for all people. And I believe that we need to have a market-based, patient-centered approach that must cover pre-existing conditions. We need to have tort reform and regulatory reform so that we increase transparency, we increase competition, so we lower pharmaceutical drug costs, so that we lower healthcare costs and increase quality of care. I think that the power should be given to the patients and the doctors, not to the federal government and to the insurance companies. And this is what I will work on when I get to Washington.
Currently, there is a lawsuit against Harvard University regarding discrimination towards Asian Americans in the admission process. What is your point of view on the possible misuse of affirmative action?
I am a very, very strong proponent, a very, very strong believer in diversity and inclusion. I do not believe that affirmative action was intended to penalize anyone. I believe that affirmative action was intended to create opportunities for everyone. And I believe that misusing any regulation is bad. I would work with all parties to make sure that everyone is given a fair shot and a free and more equal opportunity for education and to achieve the American dream, regardless of what you look like or regardless of your color or your gender or opinion.
There are people out there against affirmative action. So what is your point of view actually on this, on AA?
I believe that affirmative action opens more doors than it closes. And I believe that affirmative action right now is the law of the land. And I believe that continuing to provide diversity and inclusion measures are good for the country, but they should not be abused and they should not be used to hurt people.
Lastly, please summarize the reasons why the voters should vote for you on November 6th.
I believe that voters have a choice, that they have a choice between having a combat veteran who understands veterans issues and who understands how to keep this country safe because he's done it before. They have a choice to have somebody who understands how to create economic opportunity, but also understands how to create pipelines of prosperity into our forgotten farms and our neglected neighborhoods. Someone who's achieved results in the toughest of situations, from the battlefield to the boardroom, somebody who understands how to do things and bring people together. Whereas my opponent has 43 years as a career politician, 20 years in Washington, and 18 years in the U.S. Senate. In 43 years, she's collected $4 million from the taxpayers and has very little to show for it. And in 18 years, she's gotten 5 bills passed into law, and 3 of them are to rename buildings. Meanwhile, people back here in Michigan are suffering and don't have the leadership that they need. On day one, I would bring a balance. I would bring balance to the U.S. Senate, making sure that regardless of who is in the majority in the Congress or who is in the White House, Michigan has a seat at the table, which will make Michigan stronger. Right now, we have 2 Democratic senators, and that's not very democratic. We need to have something fair. We need to have something effective. And I am someone who keeps my promises because I swore an oath to the Constitution to protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I also swore a promise to prioritize God and country in that order and make sure that I put Michigan first.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
John,
much for
for
having me.
being with
Yes, ma'am. Thank
us
you.
today for this special election edition of Michigan Spark. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.